how do I submit to my husband when he doesn't lead? When our husbands don't lead, it can be very provoking to a wife who really desires a biblical marriage and home. Because of Ephesians 5:22, we know that when we submit to our husbands, we are ultimately submitting to Christ. But submission is really hard work because it is heart work, which requires a heart that purposefully and willingly brings itself under the headship of someone else, all the while killing its pride and dying to itself. That is hard work. So let's talk briefly about 3 responses that you can have when you're struggling with following a husband who doesn't know how to lead his wife, who stumbles in his leadership, or who simply won't lead. Submitting to a man who doesn't lead is hard because it can cause feelings of confusion, feelings of great grief or frustration. But I personally think that the worst struggle we face is the anger and resentment we feel when our husbands seem totally distracted from, utterly disinterested in, or selfishly unmotivated to lead our family. But the struggle doesn't end there. On top of all of these things comes the battle within our own conscience, because we are trying perpetually to walk a fine line to be submissive and not overstep our God-given role as helper, but also knowing that decisions have to be made and our families have to be led somewhere. So we just take over and do it all ourselves. Submission is hard work. The good news is that all of the difficulty and hard work are not wasted. You can look to God, who redeemed you and is sovereignly and actively working in you, regardless of how your husband leads or doesn't lead. And this means that you don't have to respond sinfully to your husband's floundering attempts or false starts. Instead, you can respond with the fruit of the Spirit because the actual Spirit of God resides within you, empowering you to respond with holiness. As you struggle to have a soft heart instead of a hard heart, as you wrestle with when do I speak and when do I stay quiet, when you agonize over how this all affects your children's lives, as you work to know how to be a helper and not a manipulator, an encourager, not a nagger, a motivator instead of a mutineer, an endurer instead of a quitter, a grace bearer instead of an affection withholder. Remember that God loves you and honors your heart of submission and is pleased by your obedience. Your goal as a Christian is actively being accomplished. You are being made like Jesus. So as you look to Jesus in your struggle, remember these 3 important responses. If your husband doesn't know how to lead well, please be patient and remember that God is patient when you don't know some truth about him or how to live it out practically. It's about coming alongside your husband and helping him in his weakness. If your husband is a man who struggles with or stumbles in his leadership, please be long-suffering and remember that God is long-suffering with you when you are striving after him, but your efforts fall short or you stumble and fail. If your husband is hard-hearted and won't lead, please be loving and remember that God is loving with you when you are hard-hearted or rebellious. He is lovingly and faithfully disciplining you and rooting out any rebellion against him. And ladies, in this area particularly, don't be afraid to seek others to help you and your husband work through this. God is faithful, He is kind, and He is so long-suffering with us. When your husband disappoints you, turn to the one leader who always knows what to do, who never struggles and stumbles, and always leads rightly.